Vocational education is designed to be the engine for working-class mobility, but the current model frequently achieves the exact opposite, pulling students into an endless cycle of high debt and delayed earnings before they ever enter the workforce. This chart compares the national average for traditional vocational programs against the baseline established by the Louisville Beauty Academy, or LBA. The traditional route typically saddles a student with between $16,000 and $25,000 in federal loan debt over an 18 to 24-month period. The LBA model produces a licensed professional in 6 to 9 months with zero student debt. The traditional financial burden doesn't exist simply because the instruction is inherently that expensive. It exists because traditional institutions carry massive operational vulnerabilities, specifically expensive commercial leases and the heavy administrative overhead required to process federal financial aid. Those institutional costs are passed directly on to the student's tuition bill. This creates an extended period of economic dormancy. For up to 2 years, the student is entirely removed from the active workforce, accumulating compounding liabilities instead of generating capital. When institutional survival depends on capturing federal aid to cover rising overhead, the student's economic sovereignty becomes a secondary consideration. The Louisville Beauty Academy, operating as the applied model for Tran University, serves as a structural intervention against this norm. It operates as a Category of 1 institution. At the core of its methodology is a design termed the Certainty Engine. This system is engineered specifically to transition learners directly from economic dormancy into regulated, tax-paying professional roles in under 12 months. The strict operational mandate of this engine is that graduates must enter the workforce owing absolutely $0 in student debt. Through the debt-to-earnings ratio, D sub S represents school debt and E sub 1 represents first-year earnings. By removing traditional lending, the debt variable is driven entirely to 0. This zero debt coefficient ensures graduates can immediately reinvest 100% of their earnings into their families or new businesses. To force this mathematical outcome, LBA systematically dismantled 3 accepted norms of the education sector: dependence on commercial real estate leases, reliance on Title IV federal aid, and the tolerance of extraneous cognitive load in the classroom. The Academy is an economically engineered machine. It secures workforce entry and state licensure without the corresponding financial ruin that typically accompanies higher education. Layer 1 of the LBA framework focuses strictly on the physical and financial bedrock of the institution. Traditional schools operate on a least liability foundation, subject to external market forces. LBA replaces this with asset-backed equity. They enforce a strict ownership-first policy. Facilities are purchased outright in cash or secured through a unique profit-share investor model, actively eliminating the threat of sudden market rent hikes. Locking in fixed overhead grants the institution total operational control. It completely insulates a school's budget from local real estate cycles, gentrification, or the threat of eviction. This physical stability enables the next requirement of their financial discipline, the outright rejection of Title IV federal financial aid. Instead of navigating federal loans, LBA caps tuition under $7,000. This is funded entirely through in-house, zero-interest, cash flow-based payment plans. Bypassing the Title IV system immediately strips away the massive administrative bureaucracy and compliance costs that federal lending demands, costs that other schools absorb and pass directly onto the student. By removing landlords and federal lenders from the equation, LBA forces its own institutional survival to align purely with the velocity of its student success. With the financial foundation secure, the operational challenge shifts to the classroom, compressing a generalized 2-year curriculum into a highly focused 6 to 9-month fast track. To achieve this velocity, LBA applies John Sweller's cognitive load theory as its primary engineering principle. This diagram illustrates a student's finite working memory, dividing resources between intrinsic load, germane load, and extraneous load. Extraneous load is mental effort wasted on physical noise and administrative friction. LBA actively deletes this block. They classify this systematic removal as the zero-disruption learning environment. The newly freed cognitive space is immediately reallocated to expanding the intrinsic load, the actual complexity of manual skills, and the germane load, used to build long-term memory. This optimized mental environment allows LBA to effectively deploy Benjamin Bloom's mastery learning framework. The curriculum is divided into discrete, hierarchical units. Students must demonstrably prove 80 to 90% mastery on a single step before they are permitted to advance to the next, ensuring no foundational gaps exist. This creates a system of action accumulation. Abstract grading curves are replaced by verifiable, documented daily successes, ranging from workstation sanitation to technical service execution. By stripping away educational entertainment and focusing strictly on cognitive optimization, LBA constructs a high-velocity, highly disciplined path to technical mastery. Even with technical mastery, students face a critical regulatory paradox. Individuals who pass practical, hands-on state demonstrations with near-perfect scores frequently fail their written state exams. This visualizes the theory bottleneck. While practical pass rates approach 100%, statewide data shows a massive drop-off at the written exam. The root cause of this bottleneck is reading trickery, exams relying heavily on syntactic complexity, which unjustly penalizes immigrant and ESL learners who already possess the required safety knowledge. To counter this linguistic barrier, LBA implemented the Tran AI Head, a 24/7 multilingual tutoring avatar. As the AI variable is applied to the cohort, the bottleneck expands, moving internal pass rate targets consistently above 90%. The AI functions strictly as a translation interface. It processes complex regulatory jargon and delivers it as accessible native language instruction in real time, matching the individual learner's pace. It also automates tedious compliance documentation and audit-ready evidence generation. This frees the human instructors to dedicate their full attention to tactile observation and hands-on guidance. LBA maintains a strict ethical boundary regarding this technology. The AI is deployed solely as an operational multiplier. It is never used to replace the core curriculum or the empathy of human instruction. By offloading linguistic translation and administrative friction to an artificial intelligence, LBA successfully isolates and protects the human premium, the irreplaceable empathy, judgment, and physical touch required in the service professions. With licensure achieved, the utility of the certainty engine shifts from educational compression to immediate workforce integration and economic output phase. LBA bakes a practical business literacy, termed the Living MBA, directly into the daily routine of its students. This chart illustrates the complete institutional architecture. Students practice the trade alongside navigating commercial leases, payroll, and state sanitation codes. With nearly 2,000 graduates operating salons generating up to $2 million annually, the network contributes $20 to $50 million locally every year. The curriculum functions as a micro-enterprise incubator, equipping working-class technicians with the mechanics required to become autonomous employers. The institution maintains strict legal boundaries to ensure its own survival. Their formal contractual duty to the student ends precisely upon state licensure, which prevents institutional mission creep and limits liability. However, they contrast this legal boundary with a voluntary alumni family network. This continuous connection serves as a highly resilient private safety net for the local beauty industry, offering resources for license transfers and business support. Scaling this model presents two distinct macroeconomic policy implications. First, federal aid must shift to an outcome-based pay-for-success model, where taxpayer funding is released strictly based on verifiable employment and licensure outcomes, rather than simple enrollment. Second, state and federal workforce development grants should prioritize facility ownership over temporary lease subsidies. Equipping schools to own their land guarantees institutional permanence. As automation displaces cognitive and administrative roles, the Louisville Beauty Academy framework proves that the highest value education is achieved through a precise synthesis of strict economic discipline, cognitive optimization, and the irreplaceable physics of human touch.